Hey, and welcome into the show. This is going to be kind of a weird, different show because I'm going to show you how you can crap in your backyard. In my new house in Raleigh, North Carolina, which I've talked a little bit about, um, we are on Septic, and we do have Septic in California all over the place, right? Especially up in, if you're in Agora Hills and Westlake and Thousand Oaks and stuff, which we do a lot of business in. Up in the hills, there's tons of septic and all kinds of stuff like that. But we're not used to dealing with that most of the time. You flush your toilet, you're done. You pay DWP, you pay the water company, your water and sewer bill, etc. Well, in Raleigh, in a lot of areas in Raleigh, it's a lot on septic, except if you're right in the city center, of course. We're a little on the outskirts, a little south of that, so it's a little more farming stuff. But why don't you come with me real quick, and I'm going to show you what a septic system looks like, and kind of what I understand how it works, just so you can have an idea. Because if you are going to move out of state, or you are going to move up into the hills somewhere where you're not by public utilities, you're going to be crapping in your backyard, and I'll show you what that looks like. Hang tight one sec. All right, so I'm going to try to be quick with this, but I think it's important if you're going to move out of state or you're going to move up in the hills somewhere to be aware of what kind of utilities are going to look like for you when you do that. So in Raleigh, we're outside, like I said, the city center. So we are on septic. There's no sewer here. There's no public sewer. There's no public gas. There's no public water, things like that. So what the hell do you do? Do I become like Yellowstone and just like drill down and try to find water? No, I mean, developers have a certain sense of how they build this stuff. But I just want to show you real briefly how this works. So come on with me. So this is my backyard. We're on just shy of an acre. And you cruise around. And you find a few things. Most of the house is on electric. By the way. So only the range top in the kitchen and one of the fireplaces is gas, which we realized and cost us $1,000 when we moved in a few months ago because there's no gas dryers. And we had a gas dryer from California, and so now we need to go buy an electric dryer, etc. So we get our water from well water, which the association here of these homes, I'll show you a little bit brief, but just there's about 27 homes here on this piece that we're part of. And we're on, there's various wells, essentially, and we pay into that well to share water together. Very inexpensive. And then you say, well, there's no gas either. Okay, so now electric, again, public utility. That's the only one that's out here. Water, we're on our own with this well, the neighborhood here. And then for gas, we have a big tank here that is propane. And propane utilities are up a lot right now. But again, it's only powering the range and one of the fireplaces. So the guy told me it's going to last. I had to talk to all these guys because I have no idea all the different customs and practices and with all this stuff out here. So I had to learn it and have these guys kind of, school me on it a little bit. These propane tanks, for us, he said, if it's just the two of you and maybe your girls every now and then, it's going to last like a year and a half. So I'll fill that up maybe a year from now, and it'll cost me about $400 to fill it up. It'll last me another year and a half. And then you go over and you're like, what the hell is this thing? And then that guy's got one. All the homes have this thing, and this is the septic system. So this is where all the poopy goes. It's all the water. It's the washing machine, it's all the sinks, it's the kitchen, and it's the toilets, more importantly, and all the waste. So there's no public sewer. So we don't pay for public sewer, which is amazing. We pay barely anything for gas. We pay very small amount for the water. The electric is decently fair, but it's kind of like LA pricing. I see with the electric, and no big difference there. But I just want to show you real quickly, like utilities and how this stuff works. The septic specifically, just so you have an idea. And again, I am probably the furthest thing from an expert on septic systems. I just had the guy tell me how this thing works because he said, you want to know how this works because if that red alarm goes off and the siren starts dinging, I need you to know what to do and who to call. So that's the reason why I got kind of schooled on it. But here's generally how this thing works. It's pretty amazing. But there's 3 big concrete kind of vaults dug down into the ground. And all the water and everything goes into this one first. And all the poopy stuff, all the like heavier stuff, you got to get into it, got to get real. It goes to the bottom, and then the water kind of sits in the middle, and then there's like a layer on top, which is like this foamy, scummy, nasty stuff. Okay, which I'm not quite sure what it is, but it is what it is. And there's all these bacteria and everything that naturally, you don't add anything to it, it just naturally eats itself and all this kind of stuff. And then once the water gets to a higher level, it goes boop into this one, and it does the same thing in here. it fills it up, and naturally most of the solids are already in that one, so you don't really see a lot of solids in here. You might see a little scum, but the water starts getting a little clearer, getting eaten, all the bacteria starts eating away all the bad stuff, and then it gets pumped over into this one when the second one gets filled up. It does the same thing in here. Then eventually when the water then pretty much in here, it should be, if unless the thing's broke, it should be all kind of that water. The water should be much more clear and kind of free of all the bad stuff. And so once it gets filled up there, it pumps it periodically out to my backyard. It's something to get used to, right? So you go back to kind of like where our property goes beyond this kind of brush here, you see these weeds, but there's like a bunch of pipes that run from side to side. I think there's like 4 or 5 of them that run from that gate all the way to where I'm standing here, to our property line over here. And they have little holes in it. And there's like gravel and all this other kind of stuff. And what happens is it kind of like then seeps down into the soil. And that's the way that's the way it's supposed to work. And so first thing you start asking yourself is, what in the hell is that? Like, how can that be legal? Like, how can you go to the bathroom and then these vaults, whatever, they eat the whatever and all this stuff, and then the water kind of goes into like the soil and stuff? That's how it works. That's nature. And the water is these systems are meant to kind of clean out all the water, so when it goes down, it's not, contaminating anything. And it's kept separate from the well water and all this kind of stuff. So it's all figured out. But it takes some getting used to. So if you're going to move out of state and you're going to move into maybe a little bit more rural areas like kind of we're in, and what's interesting about Raleigh, North Carolina, is we were looking at a house before this one that was really close to downtown Raleigh. I mean, like 15 minutes, and it still was on septic. So a lot of these areas just never developed. They never took like the sewer and water infrastructures out very far at all. So it's something kind of to get used to. Now, the last question is, what the hell happens with this thing? Like, do you need to do anything? How often do you need the guy to pump this stuff out? So when I called the septic guy to say, hey, tell me about how this thing works, in case that siren goes off that I showed you, I said, how often do I got to have you out? Is there like a quarterly contract? And he starts laughing at me like, California guy. And he said, no. He said, look, if it's just you and your wife and your girls maybe every now and then, every 3 to 5 years, you kind of pump it out. I said, 3 to 5 years? He's like, oh yeah. He's like, you don't understand. This stuff eats itself and all this kind of, it's all figured out. And it's about $250 to have this guy empty it. So essentially sewer's free for me. Water's super cheap. Gas is, $400 every year and a half. And there's a benefit to that. I mean, you save a ton of money, but you need to get used to there's a little bit more management of your home. You know what I'm saying? You can't just call DWP and say my sewer broke. You got to kind of deal with it. You got to go look at the alarm panel. You got to turn the siren off. There's stuff you got to do. So that's why that was interesting. Little bonus thing, by the way. Sorry, I got dirty fingers. Little bonus thing here, if you haven't heard of it. And I like landscaping, or I like gardening a lot, but I didn't know this. That is that all this grass right here, it's all the sod that the developer gave us essentially with the house, and then they stop it, and then we're resodding the rest of it. But it looks dead. So you get upset, and I'm calling the developer, what the hell? And I finally had a landscaper out who says, no, it's not dead. It's just dormant. It's Bermuda grass, and it goes dormant in the winter. It gets totally burnt out like this. And then in the spring, it just pops up bright green again. So we don't have to water the grass at all. They actually recommend you don't, so it doesn't freeze. And everybody's grass is like that. It's just all dead for the winter. And then he says around March or so, it starts kind of creeping back. And then by summertime, the thing is just flourishing. So anyway, a few things to get used to. Thought it'd be interesting because a lot of people are moving around, moving up, moving out of state, moving into the hills, things like that. And it's just a few things to be aware of that are a bit different, all right? So that's what crapping in your backyard looks like. Take care. Talk soon.